Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us on Tammy Tuesday's podcast of Life, Love, and Purpose. I am over the moon excited about our guest today. She is not only a very dear friend, but a world-famous, renowned medium. You may know her from the famous show, The Medium. Allison DuBois, thank you for being here, Allison.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm excited. In fact, we were just talking about how this is one popular girl. And so I am honored and grateful that you're here, but honestly more that we're just friends because you are truly, we've said we consider each other family and we are very close. And I just love and cherish you.
Oh, thank you. Likewise.
Yeah. So it's funny because we met through obviously mutual friends. And as you know, nothing's by accident. Mm-hmm. So we got very close. And I want to share with the listeners a little bit about your background. Because I remember when we first met, our first date, we went and had martinis and French fries.
Yes.
It was so fun.
That was fun.
It was really fun. We haven't done that again. No. I mean, we've done many other things, but not that. But it was an instant connection. And then, of course, the guys came and joined us. And that was a really fun night.
Yeah. Bonding. So,
yes,
for sure.
For sure. But it was funny. Even that night, because I had never been around you or even a medium and understanding how it works for you. And even as we sat there, I remember having a conversation and suddenly, because you're very particular about where we go and where we sit, because you're constantly receiving noise and feedback. Yeah. I mean, constantly. And this was new to me because I had never really been exposed to this before. So I'm sitting there watching you and you kind of got disrupted while we were in the middle of our conversation. And you said, I think we need to move. And I was like, what's going on? And you just started talking about how the family that sat behind us, they had a whole family with them that that I couldn't see.
Right.
And it was loud.
Right.
So you couldn't hear.
If I can pick up on hearing the dead, imagine what the living sound like to me. So a lot of mediums, we don't go to concerts unless it's sort of a secluded VIP area or something where we have some space or control of our space.
Yeah.
So when 7 people sit behind me, I'm pulling all their energy at the same time. And especially babies, when they scream, they hit a certain note that is nails on the chalkboard. So it makes my teeth hurt.
Yeah. I know.
When we're sitting, I like to have my back to something where people can't be there. And so, I don't go out very often. I'm not that social. I am not that girl.
No.
So I don't want to go to be seen places. I really don't care. I like going to places with quiet music that are just kind of chill.
Yeah, I know. That's totally you. And it's fun because we get to experience those things with you at times. And we always have such a fun time.
We do.
So maybe go into just a little bit of your history, because your history is fascinating for people. I think most people probably know who you are because you are very famous and you've been famous for a long time. And it really honestly came out of your gifts and abilities when the show The Medium came out. That was a huge pivotal moment in your life.
Yes.
I mean, huge.
And I think what people don't understand is I was only 32 when they shot the pilot episode, and I was 33 when it aired. I had very little girls, very young children, and it came out of left field. It's nothing I went looking for, which makes mediums hate me even more because I didn't try and get a show. It just sort of happened.
Well, that's how it was intended for you.
Thank you. I felt very blessed by it, but I didn't really know how to handle the fame or the notoriety that came along with it because I wasn't an actress. I didn't start out in the entertainment industry. It was just something I got sort of thrust into, and I was on a show, a pilot. It was my first pilot. I was 28. And I went there because they said they reached out to different people with abilities around the world, runes, astrology, profiler. I was the profiler, oracle, mediums, psychics, and they had them all compete against each other for this pilot. And I was 28 and I've always been competitive anyways, but I thought, I want to see what other people like me are because I wore suits and carried an attaché case. I mean, that's not really what people think of as a medium.
Right.
And I went there, I competed, I didn't intend to be one of the 5 oracles left standing at the end. And by the end of it, probably partially because I was trained in a laboratory by scientists and had to jump through massive hoops in order to hone my skills and be relevant in that environment in the academia. And so when it came to competing, I was just cutting them down because they couldn't compete against me. And I'm like, don't you get names? Can't you tell if it's a first or a middle name? Can you not see a street sign or types of cars? They just, some of them were very general and very woo-woo. Mm-hmm. And I don't really relate to people in the ethereal that are woo-woo because I was going to be a prosecuting attorney. I don't look down on them. I'm not the same energy.
Right.
So I do connect with the other side. I am a trauma expert, because murder is where I was in homicide. So I'm able to stomach and deal with and process out all of the details of those very difficult readings that I do. But when it came to the oracles and I made the top 5, Kelsey Grammer was producing that show, and I became friends with him. Mm-hmm. So I became friends with Kelsey Grammer just at 28, and I called him up and I said, I wrote my first book. This is before the show came out, so Don't Kiss Them Goodbye is what I'd written. Right. And partially I wrote it as a journal that turned into a book because my father died, mm-hmm. and I had predicted his death and when and what he'd die of, and I tried to prevent it and I failed because it wasn't in the cards for him to be saved. I got that, and it was so I could understand my clients and what it felt like to grieve. So I wrote his chapter my way 24 hours after I found out he died, and it was excruciatingly painful and it was raw and heartfelt. And I just thought something good has to come out of something so bad. And so I asked Kelsey to put a blurb on it, just write a little something. And of course he did, which was great. And the rest is history. And that's how I became friends with him. But the oracles never aired, which was fine. But it was just funny to be there with people. I learned more about astrology then because I hung out with the astrologers. The people that did runes, I'm like, what are runes? What's that? Yeah. And so that was interesting because there's just so many different levels of spirituality and light work that is being done out there. And it was just cool to meet people from around the world. They were from all over, mm-hmm. England, Scotland, they flew in from all over. And every day on the oracles, they'd make cuts. And so you'd see your friends going home, because there were over 100 people in the beginning competing, and they just say, you're not with us anymore. You got to pack your bag. And I'm like, what a way to put it. That was like
the tribe has voted or whatever, right?
You've been voted off. Yeah. And so that was my first introduction to Hollywood and how sort of cutthroat it was, where they're just like, round up your stuff, get in the shuttle. We're taking you to the airport.
You're out.
Yeah, because they have a budget and they're not paying for another night for them to stay there. They just got them out of there.
Wow.
Until we were in the last 5. And the way that I'm very empathetic to people. But if I think somebody's full of shit,
you call them.
I'm not. And there was one guy, he didn't even have to compete. He was somebody the producer liked. And this is what I didn't really fancy about the show. And they brought him up. And they said, he's very sensitive. Maybe you could let him eat lunch with you. And everyone would eat lunch with me. I don't know why. I'd sit down and they'd come sit with me. And that was fine. They said, maybe you could invite him over. And I just looked at the producer and I said, I'm not his mother. Oh, I was like, he can figure it out. He's a big boy,
right?
A very big boy. And he was older than me. So why, it was just, it's interesting when you take energies like me that have massive borders and boundaries with the living and the dead. Mm-hmm. And then you have somebody who has no borders or boundaries, which was that particular medium. And I couldn't relate. I couldn't relate to it at all, which is why I teach my students borders and boundaries, because if you have abilities and you don't have that, you're useless in the professional capacity.
Oh my gosh. Well, that's huge. So, okay, there's several things I want to go talk about. But first, before you were called to be part of this. And like you said, you had been studied in labs.
Right.
So your experience was totally different. And I know you've told me the story and you've shared the story publicly too about how little examples of how this has been a natural gift for you since you were a child.
Right.
I mean, it's always been
as
there.
long as I can remember.
Yeah, you don't even know it without it. You don't know life without it.
Right.
So when that started to happen, it was interesting because you're a native to Arizona too. Go AZ, which we love.
I know, love our AZ.
I know, but it's funny because you were like, no, I'm going to be an attorney.
Yeah.
That's what I want to do.
Yeah.
And you were kind of defining it for yourself, and Spirit had other plans for you.
You know, I fought Spirit for a while, and that was a big lesson because in the 5th grade, I decided I wanted to grow up to put bad guys away. That's why I wanted to be a prosecuting attorney to protect children.
What do you think that had to have come from Spirit?
So I had a mom that didn't really, I'm Gen X, so I got babysat by a television set, and I was kind of an old soul, so I liked watching the news. and I watched the Atlanta child murders and what was going on there. And then around the same time, Adam had come out. The story of Adam Walsh, the 6-year-old that was abducted and murdered by Otis Toole.
What year was that?
I think I'm going to have it like 81, 82, somewhere in there.
Okay.
And I saw those. And when I saw Adam, it was the first time that I realized somebody would hurt a child. Like that never occurred to me because I was so young. And it incensed something in me. Like it flipped a switch where I had a fight in me.
Yeah.
And I wanted to do something to protect kids, even though I was one.
Right.
And so it was just this divine feeling of that's what I'm going to grow up to do. I carried an attaché case in the 5th grade. I mean, I was a weird kid. I just was. I was like an adult in a little girl's body. And so then I was interning in homicide to be a prosecutor. I got a degree, which is obviously useless to me now.
Well, that's what's so funny. I mean,
no, I know I'm still proud of myself that I finished college and got my degree in political science and history. You know where that does help though? Having a degree in history, when I'm reading people and they'll show me the hairstyle, the clothing, a car, furniture, and they're showing me the time that they reside in now, which is the time that I know that they lived in and were young in at the time when they were alive. I'm able to place almost many times to the year. I'll be like, this looks more like 1961.
Yeah.
You know,
specifically.
Yeah. And then the client will say, yeah, that's when and I will have already given the age the person reverted to. You revert to the age that was your heaven on earth after you die. And so they always give me the age, and it's either when they fell in love, got married, they were in the military, they were a Golden Gloves prize fighter, you know, whatever was their heaven. And that'll be the age that the person was in 1961, you know, so it all comes full circle.
And that's what they show you.
Yeah, that's what they show me. But it was Adam and the Atlanta child murders that sent me on my journey to become an attorney. And like I said, I fought it. And I remember hearing about the University of Arizona was studying mediums. And I had just started, Joe was figuring out that what I was doing was more than female instinct.
Oh, yeah.
And so I said, I'm going to go there. I'm going to go through the testing so I can prove that I'm average. And then I can go back to law school and finish and know that I tried.
Right.
You know, because I felt like otherwise I was dismissing a gift. But if I tried and I was average, that'd be cool, right? I could go back to law school. I'd already taken my LSATs, you know, I was already applying. And I went to the university and they started testing me, and I was testing off the charts, and they started writing academic journals about the testing that I was doing and the accuracy. And I was completing some pretty impressive tests at the time, to where it was blowing me away. It was blowing my husband away, who's a scientist himself. And so I spent 4 years being studied. And then it really dawned on me that it doesn't matter how much proof you have. No proof will ever be enough for a skeptic.
Sure.
And as far as the believers, no proof is necessary. Like There's an actual quote of that. I'm paraphrasing, But to me, it just became very obvious that I didn't actually care if everybody believed in what I do because it's a part of me. And I've lost a couple of friends over it, which I don't view as friends anymore, but that I'd known since grade school, junior high, high school, where one of them actually said to me, she said, and this would be in our 40s, she says, I defend you to all the kids we went to school with, they think what you do is like bullshit. And I just looked at her and I'm like, Timmy from junior high thinks what I do is bullshit and he grew up to be a loser and I'm supposed to care. And I said, and you used that to hurt me.
Yeah.
I said, we're not friends anymore. And that was it. And I'd known her since we were 13. So, but for people that don't believe, I know they're going to find out one day, either because they're going to lose someone and there's something inside of them that will need that connection.
Right.
And then they start having the signs and the experiences, the visits and dreams, or they're going to find out when they die.
Yeah.
So
either way, it's coming.
Yeah. So for all the people out there that are wasting their energy, putting it into people while they're trying to convince them, just stop.
Exactly.
Conserve your energy.
Yeah.
Put it back into yourself.
Exactly. That's a huge thing to say for people that have these gifts and natural abilities and tune into them, because they do. People naturally look to the outside for approval and acceptance, and you don't need that. That's one of the things that I love most about you, Allison, is you are not a person that will put up with bullshit.
No.
And if somebody is trying to get close to you for inauthentic reasons, you know it.
Yes.
I mean, you know it for lots of reasons that you know it, but not just that, but you also don't put up with it and you don't apologize.
No.
I mean, you are really who you are and you're extremely confident and comfortable with who you are. And there are not a lot of people on this planet that live that way.
That's true. And I'm hoping that more people will begin to live that way, because we have these younger generations. Now, my kids obviously speak their mind. They are a chip off the old block. And I'm so proud. Borders, boundaries, check. But with the millennials, that generation sort of got coddled by the boomers. And the boomers thought their parents were too rough, so they were too lenient with their kids. And you ended up with kids where they all thought that they were special.
Right.
And it's like individually, technically, I mean, there's something special about all of us. People like to say that because they don't want to hurt people's feelings.
Right.
But come on, not all babies are cute. Like, we all know that. We all know that. They're sweet, but I mean, come on. So if people get honest with themselves, they can stop putting energy into things that don't matter. And I think because Gen X grew up with no social media. I mean, people could write you a letter to tell you they were angry, but so what? You set it on fire.
Right.
Now, you've got all these young people who are addicted to the likes and the comments and they take everything personally. I'm like, block, delete. What's the problem?
Right,
like if somebody offends you, just do that. So I'm actually really glad to have grown up Gen X and to have been a latchkey kid and to be named Gen X, because the boomers were basically saying we were insignificant, that we were generic generation because they were more important than us.
Right.
And then they had kids and had to give them a special name, the millennials. By the way, you're not millennials, you're Generation Y.
Yeah, that's true, actually. Yeah.
So
where did millennial come from? Just because it was the turn of the...
They were basically saying that they were millennials because they would be adults in the new millennium. Right. But who came up with that rule and reason for that title? They're really Generation Y.
Yeah.
And why did that ever start? Because before our generation, Gen X, they were the silent generation. They were World War IIers. They were boomers. So now they're talking about Gen A. I'm like, when did we all just assume that because they call us it, that's what it is, that you have to be an alphabet letter.
Yeah.
And that becomes your label. Like, who's deciding all of this? So
that's a really great point. I mean, who the heck is making this up?
Exactly. So we're just people.
Exactly.
And we're generations that vibe and generations that don't. And every generation thinks the one before it's screwed up. And that's just the way it's going to be.
Yeah. Well, because times in our existence in this place, it's evolving and changing. And so we're experiencing different things.
Yes.
So yeah, of course we're in categories of our experiences because of how we grew up and what we had exposure to.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
true. And how we were raised. And for my generation, we were latchkey kids. So
Yeah.
moms started going to work and weren't at home anymore and didn't run bake sales at our school. And things started sort of falling apart, but it made us tough.
Right.
Because we survived. We had lawn darts this big that could impale you
Yeah.
when your brother threw it at you.
Yeah.
And they're like, here's your new toy.
And we had trampolines with no nets.
Yeah, right.
And we rode our bikes till it was dark outside in our neighborhoods.
Yes. They come home when the porch light's on or the floodlight comes on and it's just the street light. And it's just so interesting. And then with millennials, they wrapped them in bubble wrap and put them on little tricycles. It's like, I'm all for protection and everything, but survival of the fittest isn't a bad method.
Well, we need to learn how to survive.
You do have to learn how to survive and how to deal with adversity.
Yeah.
How to get out of situations when there's no one there to bail you out.
Yeah.
And to problem solve.
Exactly. That's part of the thing. And I've said that a lot, is that if there's one skill I could want to teach my kids, it's how to problem solve.
Yeah.
You have to fix this yourself. This is something that you need to learn how to do.
Yeah.
I can't fix this for you.
It's very true. And I've had Sophia, her generation, Gen Z, they throw around, I have PTSD from, the concert, the Rossoni people. And I actually looked at Sophia, this was when she was a little younger, and I said, that's actually kind of rubs me wrong that you'd say that. I said, I deal with victims that survive rape. And I deal with bringing military through that committed suicide because they couldn't deal with life when they got back from war. They have PTSD.
Right. You're like, come on now. Don't throw that around.
I'm like, you guys just have some anxiety that you don't know how to deal with. It's like, get a punching bag, take it out on that, like work it out.
Yeah.
That's what you do. And you move on.
Yeah.
And I think it's why some generations fare better than others. It's how you're raised.
Right.
If your parents tell you can't protect yourself and that everything you do is right and that other people are wrong and destroy the other person because they hurt your feelings, then you're going to have a lot of people that are really messed up in society that tear other people down and then have banners on their Instagram that's like girl power, yet they tear other girls down and malign them. So we've got a bunch of confused generations like popping off at the same time right now. Mm-hmm. And your kids, by the way, are little gentlemen. They're good. They're good kids.
Thank you.
So you did a good job raising them. And I used to think nothing of it when people would come up to Joe and I and say, your kids are so well behaved when we go to restaurants or the theater. And now I understand why they were doing that, because not all kids are. Mm-hmm. Their parents let them run around in restaurants and scream, and they just tune them out and pretend like it's not happening and let it be everyone else's problem.
Right.
And that's why we have prisons. Because those kids grow up and they've got to be contained.
Well, because they don't know how to problem solve.
Right.
They just they run mayhem and things happen.
Yep.
I agree. I know. So speaking of being a family, so you were very close to your dad. So when you lost your dad, that was a huge loss for you.
Yeah, it was also because I was only 30 when he passed. And I had to remind myself that's still older than a lot of kids who lose their parents or they have no memory of them. So I think being a medium helps me to empathize, and also from a perspective of others who didn't have what I had, to be grateful that I had them for the 30 years. I think the hardest part for me is that was the one thing that I said to the other side. I'm like, if you take my dad, I'm not reading people anymore. I'm not doing this, because I knew he was going to die at 67 of a massive heart attack.
Talk about that, because the fact that that's a huge thing.
Yeah.
Knowing that information, how did you handle that when that came across? Because if you know that information, that is not easy to hear or to know. So how did it come to you, and how did you handle what you received? Because that's tough.
Yeah, it was. So we were outside of Luby's, which I miss because they had the best desserts. And
you have a sweet tooth. By the way, this woman makes amazing peach pie.
Thank you. I do make a great peach pie. So we're outside Luby's with my dad and his girlfriend, and the girls were all tiny. Sophia was at an age where I don't think my dad even noticed her because she was so young. She was just like 1. And I heard a voice when we were talking about going to Toys R Us, and I heard a voice say, your dad's going to die at 67 of a massive heart attack. Those were the exact words.
And it came out of nowhere.
Out of nowhere. I mean, we just finished eating and paying. So yeah, just out of nowhere. And I looked at my husband, Joe, and I said, I just heard that voice that guides me say, Dad's going to die at 67 of a massive heart attack. And Joe just paused because he knew that when I heard things happened. Mm-hmm. And so I thought, okay, I'm going to intervene. I'm going to buffer my dad. So I sent him to cardiologists and, the Arizona Heart Institute's what it was called at the time. And they ran him through the tests and said he was fine. And he was a professional ballroom dancer for 50 years. Dad was in good shape, you know. And I was at my cousin's wedding in California, and I looked at my cousin Mark and I said, my dad's going to be 68 in December. This was in September. I said, I think I could be wrong and he'll live. And wouldn't that be great? He died that night. So I was at the wedding and he died, and I found out the next day that he had passed, and I thought we had almost, dodged the bullet. And so I had to have an ME report, the medical examiner report. I had to see it with my own eyes, and it said clear signs of heart disease. So I just I recognized at that time that my dad was supposed to die, that it was written in stone, is what I call it, meaning irreversible.
Nothing you could do.
Nothing you can do, and it's happening for a reason. And so I understood that it's so I could relate to my clients who had lost people, because I'd never lost someone close to me before that. And I did. And it's weird. I'd put more energy if it's a daughter that loses a dad. There was something inside of me where I'd dig deeper. I just would dig a little bit deeper than I had before, because I wanted to give them that moment of communication with their dad, because I know how important that is. And so people would say, well, you're a medium. You can talk to him anytime you want. It's like, well, that's true. And I do pretty much daily, but it's not the same as making memories with a person. No. I know he saw our daughter's high school graduations and college graduations and, weddings. And I know he'll be there for those days, but the memories stop.
Yeah.
And that's the kicker in life. So yes, mediums do have that ability to connect. At the same time, if there's not a reason for them to be here to help us with something, sometimes they fade a little. So we'll go back to the living world because they don't want to hold us back. So there's just all kinds of variations of what your relationship with them can be once they pass. But for me, not being able to prevent that was a little scarring. I think I stopped reading people for a couple of weeks. And then I heard a voice say, basically, you're going to penalize everyone else, all the other daughters. You're not going to do that for them because yours had to die.
Right.
And I was just like, yeah, okay. I'm like, I gotta help people. And so I went back into it. I've read over 10,000 people now from all over the world and helped so many where they constantly reach out. They're like, you saved my life. And that's why I had to keep doing it. But losing my dad was definitely hard. He was the fun in my life. He wasn't he wasn't there all the time. He didn't take care of me when I was sick or anything like that, because my parents divorced when I was very small. But he took me to the fair and we went to the movies, and he was that. So
he was the fun.
He was the fun.
Yeah.
So
when you said that you heard, because you hear a voice, and that's been happening, like you said, you don't know it without it.
Life,
so when you say that, where do you feel that it comes from? Is it something specific? Is it God? Is it different people? What is that for you?
So I've been giving this a lot of thought because I've been doing this a long time now. And I do believe in guides. I know that relatives we didn't even know or that we're named after become our guides because they vibe with us or they feel connected to us, especially a namesake. If you're named after someone, boom, that person immediately thinks you're theirs and they're one of your main people, you know? But I started watching Beyond and Back, which is sort of a continuation of the TV show I Survived.
Okay.
And I'm watching these, and I know some people that are in the NDE, like the near-death world, and I'm watching what the people are saying, how they're describing the other side. And I've seen angels before, and they're not soft. They're not smiling. They don't have harps. They're not on clouds. They're fierce. And they usually have a very solemn look on their face. And I'm like, where do they come from? Like, are they created? And then I started thinking, because I'm really good friends with Tom McMullen, who's a karmic astrologer, how we have to come back lifetime after lifetime to fulfill what we didn't in the last lifetime. If we fail in one lifetime, we come back, we're given that an opportunity to have love, to have a child, to achieve our soul goals, whatever that is. And I was like, what if people who come back enough and become the most evolved that energy can be, their soul, become those beings? I'm like, what if angels and the powers that be that these near-death experiences have conversations with on the other side that tell them whether or not they can, it's their time, or if they have to go back? What if that's us?
Right. Just it evolved.
The most evolved. It's the most evolved beings.
Right.
So they've come back for many lifetimes. It's an interesting thought. Obviously, no way to prove it.
Right.
But to me, that made a lot of sense, that it would be beings that had been back to Earth over and over and over
and
again.
Have worked through it.
And had worked through it, and they get it.
And they decided, I want to help people from this angle.
Right. And they can see why we have to be sent back, that there's something we have to do here. We didn't complete what we were here to do. And that's why some people will survive 17 bullets and other people die when their car just goes sideways in a ditch. And they're like, how did they die? And it seems so unfair that some people survive these incredible circumstances and that other people die of things that are almost like a stupid reason to die, you know? But that does make a lot of sense to me. And so I'm pretty sure, I'm not claiming to be so special and evolved, but I'm not coming back. I've been here, I've done that, I've seen it, I get it. And I just want to be there, because here doesn't feel right amongst people that are really still, it seems almost on the surface one way, and then they're not real.
They're not being them. They're not being who they are.
Yeah. It's like insincere. There's like this insincere spirituality floating around right now.
Right.
And a lot of people are the real deal, or are truly engaged, and they're light workers. And most of those light workers are the real deal if they'll tell somebody exactly what they think of them. It's the people that are bold. And I don't mean in a mean way. I mean in an honest way.
It's honest.
Yeah. And that's how we used to deal with each other, was in more of an honest way, and not sugarcoating things to not hurt people's feelings.
Right.
And it's like, we don't want to hurt people, but we do want people to get stronger.
Right.
And so...
And you want them to know how...
The truth.
Yes.
I'm fine if a friend
very good
comes
at that.
to me. Yeah. And they say, you know what? Yeah, I can't make it to dinner. This came up. I'm being lazy. I'm sorry. And I'm like, cool, I get it.
Right.
I've been there. But if they make up a lie to get out of it, and I find out later, that grates on me. It's like, why did you do that?
Yeah.
They didn't need to, because anyone that knows me knows, just tell me.
Just tell me the truth.
Just tell me the truth. And I just think we need so much more of that, which is why I like kids. They'll just walk right up to you and be like, why are you ugly? Hee hee, and run away. I'm like, that's hilarious. So I love kids.
There's a lot of purity in that.
There is a lot of purity. They have no edit button. I have no edit button.
I know you don't.
I can relate. So, life is interesting, but that's sort of the manifestation of, me, medium, my dad dying. My dad never got to see all of the success I had with medium, or Patricia Arquette winning the Emmy for playing me, or me becoming a New York Times bestselling author, or me being on Oprah and just like killing the readings. And like, I was so proud.
Yeah.
He didn't, but he did see it.
Of course he did.
He did see that. And I have to be content with that.
Yeah.
Sometimes
but like you said,
we have to be content with that.
It feels different though, when they're not on this human realm and you want to create memories, like you said, and have physical tangibility. And you don't get that when they're over there.
Exactly. It's true. My dad helps me with readings. I always say, please bring through the information loud and clear and in the best interest of my client. And then as I'm bringing the person through who died, I'll say, Dad, can you focus their energy and turn up their volume? And I'll feel him adjust their energy so that they come through more easily. So he helps me every day.
Yeah, he changes the dial for the frequency to come through.
He does.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes the more evolved you become, the less you can be around humanity.
Yeah. It
just becomes more difficult to be around it. It just all seems so fluffy.
Right. And not real.
Not real. So, yeah.
Well, like you said, with soul work, I mean, we come here with that intention, right? And not all of us can get to it. That's why we keep coming back and back and back and back.
Right.
And honestly, the thing that's the most sincere about you is that you truly do see that. And I think that probably people misconstrue that. You're misunderstood by people. They think, oh, wow, she's bold. Well, yeah, she is. And you're not for everybody because you're just going to be you.
That's true.
Sincerely and authentically you.
I'm okay with that.
That's the best part about it is you have no issue with that because you are doing what you know you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
On that note too, with your soul work, you are relentless. You've said to me many times, I will do this till I'm dead.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not going to stop doing this. And because you know that it is your soul destiny to be here to do this for these people.
Yes.
And you give your entire heart into this. I mean, you don't stop. I tell you all the time, like, you need a break. You're a workaholic.
Yeah.
I'm the queen of calling people on that. And you do that, but you can't not because you feel this is truly my soul destiny. This is why I'm here. This is how I came here to help people. And I'm never going to stop because you tried to take, when your dad passed, you were trying to say, okay, I just need a minute.
Right.
And then all of a sudden you're like, no.
Right.
There isn't a minute.
I'm not here for me. I've been very aware my whole life that I'm here in service to others. And so, yes, I prefer the dead over the living.
Yeah, you've said that. You said they say we're the ones that are dead.
They say we're the dead ones. They're more alive than we are. And I believe that's true because I enjoy them.
Yeah.
They play the music from the time they were young. They show the parties and the fashion and how hot to trot they were for the guy they were with, or, it's just so much
light.
Cooler. It is light. And the cars had more appeal and things were simpler. And the food, like they talk about food, food is emotion. And I say this to all parents out there, that whatever you make, whether it tastes good or not, it makes your kid feel loved because you bothered. Maybe not when they're a kid, but when they grow up, they're going to want it because it reminds them of love. You. It brings them closer to you. So when I bring people through, they will say, go get ice cream when you miss me and we'll have a scoop together. Because that was what their dad used to do, is take them for a scoop of ice cream in the living world. Food carries emotion. So take the time. I've printed out recipe books from all of my recipes with a picture of what that recipe is supposed to look like after I've made it. And each of our girls have a copy of that book with all the recipes. Because one of the things I see people regret is that they didn't get their mother and their grandmother's recipes and they can't remember what that little extra pinch of whatever that makes the difference was.
Right.
And I became this mother. I'm so ashamed. But I'll make something and then I'll put a little extra something in and Joe's like, you did it. You are the mother that you're mad about because she puts in a little extra something.
And they don't have it.
And it's not the same if they make it. And I'm like, you're right. So I'm like writing things in the book.
Well, it's funny that you said that about food because food is it's a love language.
Yes.
It's a way to communicate your love to your family.
Yeah.
And it's so funny about food because we are so hard on ourselves about food.
Yeah.
I mean, and I've heard so many people say when they come through for family that are still here living, have the piece of cake. For God's sake, what do you just do it? Just be happy.
Yeah.
Just be happy. Enjoy it.
It's so true. And they're just going to sneak something later anyways that's just as bad or worse.
And why don't you just love it and be okay with loving it?
Yeah, just own it.
Exactly.
And enjoy it.
Exactly.
I couldn't agree more. And it's a good way to connect with the dead food. with my dad, he always took me on my parents, like I said, divorced. I don't even remember them together. I don't know how they came together long enough to make me, but like, whatever. It's like a whatever. People have all this anxiety over divorce. I'm like, whatever. Pizza. So I got like a big pizza balloon and a popcorn balloon and, you know, for Father's Day one year, and just sent it up to him. And, you know, all the people that are on earth that are going, well, what about this? And what about that? And you're littering. And it's like, shut up, you know, let people live already. But my dad always patted his pizza with a napkin, and he got me in the habit of doing that when I was a kid to get the grease off of it. And after he died, I thought, I bet he bought himself some time that way, because he ended up passing of a heart attack, mind you, that nobody would have thought he would have had. And I just found this. So our girls now, I'll catch them patting their pizza, and I'm like, there's the love.
Exactly. Yeah. It's a gesture.
Yeah.
I mean, it's there's so much to it.
Yeah. And learn things from the generations before you take the good things. You don't have to take everything.
Right.
They mess up too. They're flawed. They're people.
Exactly.
My dad used to take me to the state fair when I was little. He took me even until I got married, but he'd take me to the fair and he'd grease the hand of the guy at the, you know, balloon in the dart game, or like whatever I was trying to win. I'd see him slide a little something as I got older. I'm like, oh, okay.
Now I know why I always win.
Right. So we took the girls, and Aurora was trying so hard to win this stupid scooter. And it was the baseball into the basket that's angled kind of weird.
It's almost impossible to do.
Yeah. And I pulled the guy aside. I'm like, what's it going to take? I felt so much like my dad. I'm like, just between you and me.
Oh, you were channeling your dad.
I do it all the time.
Yeah.
And I said, I got a 20 here, and I could liberate it for you. I'd really like
you know that'll buy that big stuffed animal that's a piece of crap on the wall.
Exactly.
This will more than cover that.
He rang the bell and everything. Ding, ding, ding. We have a winner. And she got the scooter, and she found out like 10 years later that I did that. I felt kind of bad about that, but she was so excited that she won it and just wrote it everywhere. That's a memory. That's special. The cotton candy. And I think white lies sometimes are okay.
Yeah.
You know, the world can be difficult, and we navigate it the best we can. And I really try and be upfront with people. But when it came to the girls, I'd go to the front office on a day, and I wouldn't tell them that I was going to do this. I'm like, I need to take my daughters out for a dentist appointment. And I'd sign them out, and I'd take them to the fair, and we just spend the whole day riding rides and playing games. They're going to remember that.
Oh, yeah. They got to play hooky with their mom.
They're going to remember that. And whatever they would have learned in class that day does not compare to the moment that we created together that day.
Yeah.
And so, and just so you all can feel better, none of them are going to be that doctor that operates on you, because that didn't happen. They're not that. So missing that one day doesn't matter.
It's going to be fine. In fact, it was better spent with what you did to create some kind of memory or bring joy in their life.
Oh my God, they were so happy. And I said, you got to tell your friends you got out of school to go to the fair. And they were so happy. And they still remember all the times that I would do that. Or I was the kid that my mom always told me no. You know, when you're at the store and you're like, Mom, can I get some ice cream? No, we've got to get home. We got to make dinner. And I'm like, I was always that just disappointed kid. I hate it when I see these poor kids, long faces. I want to buy them an ice cream, but I understand there's boundaries.
Right.
But with our girls, they're like, Mom, can I get that lip gloss and that gum? I'm like, yes.
Well, you know what's interesting about what you're saying is you were living like a grandparent would live.
Yeah.
With your own children.
Yeah.
Because you know that you understand that we don't need to be so serious here all the time.
Yeah.
Because like the dead tell you, we're the dead ones.
Right.
We're like the zombies that are walking in this robotic fashion that is totally unnecessary.
Following some fake rules that somebody we don't even know set for us, like naming generations.
Exactly. Exactly.
So it's very true. And, but I also had boundaries with them, and they knew when they'd crossed them, because I was also the mom that I knew how to hurt them if it came to them doing something where I'd ask like two things of them. I'm like, don't lie to me, and don't go behind my back. Like just don't. And if I caught them doing that, I would look at them. I'm like, oh man, do I know what matters to you? And it's so gone.
Right.
So cell phones disappeared, and I'd take them for a long time. Like I made it count.
Right.
And then they didn't do that again. I remember standing outside of Aurora's window when she was 14, something like that. She was having a sleepover, and we had the most awesome house. I'm like, we have video games at our house. Why are you sneaking out, you dum-dum? And so I hear the window open. I'm standing outside, and she was in a downstairs. It was like underground is where all the girls' rooms were, because it was Central Phoenix, and so we had multi-levels. And she starts crawling out, and she looks up. I'm like, really? In what world did you think you were going to pull that over me? Like,
seriously.
I'm like,
weren't they afraid that you could sense stuff anyway? I mean, really?
Here's the thing. I don't beat my kids. I don't do anything like that. So when it came to consequence, and I will not humiliate them. And I've seen parents use that as forms of punishment in front of other children. I won't do that. I think it breaks their soul. It injures their soul. It's one thing to take a phone or consequences or leave them behind because they when you're taking the other two shopping, it's like, yeah, you don't get anything. They always had good grades. They were always polite and well behaved, and two of them were athletes and very good at what they did. So they were really good kids. Did they go out of bounds sometimes? Absolutely. We dealt with the same things other parents deal with, peer pressure, all that as well. And I tried to always let them know that they could come back to me if they're ever in a moment where they're afraid. They can tell me anything. I won't hold it against them, and I'll help them figure out how to solve that problem.
Well, that's the thing. You said, look, just be upfront and honest about what's going on. Right. I'm going to help you in that situation versus you hiding or trying to make something that's not real. Cause then we're struggling. Well,
and we grew up in Arizona, and I think we were raised differently than a lot of people in the country because, sometimes kids will drink as teenagers. And this was something that came up. And I'd see their parents, lock them in the house, and you can't have any friends over, and you can't go on a date, nothing like that. They're not going to trust you. They'll tell you nothing. That kid goes to college and dies of alcohol poisoning.
Exactly.
Or doesn't know about date rape, isn't street smart. So I raised our girls. They knew about Rohypnol, roofies, checking their drink, watching their friends' drinks, buddy systems. I raised them like that because I worked in cases of murdered children and abductions and rape. And they learned how to be smart about things and how to read people because they have that innate ability to do it. Also, when they were teenagers, our girls went to Chaparral. Okay, anyone that grew up here knows they have the good parties. They have the really I went to those when I was a teenager.
Oh, yeah, same. We grew up in Scottsdale.
Right, because I'm like, their mom's going to have food there too. Those moms cater that stuff. It's fantastic. There's going to be pizza. Anyways, and they've got swimming pools. It's fantastic. So I got the younger two an app for Uber because Uber had just come out. And most of the parties they go to are right in our neighborhood, which is very safe.
Right.
But I said, I'm not going to be pie in the sky, head in the clouds, thinking you're not going to take a nip of something. So here's the thing.
Right.
If you do that, don't drive. If you drive, that car is gone forever. I said, and you will lose my respect.
That's the kicker.
Yeah. I said, if you need a ride, I will come pick you up. No questions asked. I just want you safe, and I want to keep other people's children safe. Right. I always have my eye on other people's kids, making sure they got home.
Right.
And I said, or here is a bit of freedom. I have it connected to my credit card. If you need an Uber or a friend needs an Uber to get home safe, you can use this. And they did.
Yeah.
And it was fine.
And it's totally worth it.
It was fine. And then when they went to college, they're like,
Right. Well, that's what I'm saying. Like you said, they go on benders when they get to college because they've been so restricted.
Yes.
When they were younger
and then they
at
missed
home.
out on high school and they didn't get to do the cool stuff and hang out with the cool kids.
You would see it that way.
I had the strict mom that didn't want me going.
Yeah.
And I feel like I missed out on so much in junior high and high school. I became the mom I didn't have.
Yeah.
And that's how we heal our wounds from childhood.
That's interesting. So true.
You go out into the world and you do and become exactly what you wished you'd had.
Right.
And I did become that mother. And, even with Aurora, not to divulge too much, but even with our oldest daughter, she got married, knew it wasn't going to last. She got a divorce. She comes back. He had separated her out from the family, which is always a bad sign.
Right.
And he was very controlling. And she came back and he told her family would never take her back after not talking to them.
Wow.
Not talking to us for the 2 years they were together. And I looked at her and I said, as hurt as I am, I said, we're your family and we'll close ranks.
Yeah.
I said, we would never let you fall.
No.
And that was just such a big moment because no matter how hurt I was, because she's my child, I know that family comes first and you always close ranks, even if they make a mistake, because it's just like them being a kid. Just the mistakes in adulthood sometimes take on a different form, but it's still a need. There's still children on the inside.
Well, and you're still their ultimate teacher here.
Yeah.
And they want your love and acceptance over anyone else.
Yeah. And that just made us closer than ever with Aurora. She's like, I feel so safe with my family. She's like, you guys love me. And
you have my back always.
She's like, I'll never do that. And I was like, yeah, just don't do it again.
Exactly.
Cool,
it's okay. Yeah.
But so parenting never ends. They don't hit 18 and they're gone and that's it.
No.
Not when you love them and you're connected to them and you want to be part of their lives. And those are the good parents. And Chaparral's actually got quite a lot of good parents. They're fun parents too.
Yeah. I consider myself that, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, definitely. I mean, you let them be the age that they are. It's not like, do as I say, not as I do.
Right.
Yep. I became a hellion as a teenager because my mom kept me restricted. I moved out at 15.
Yeah. Wow.
So, yeah. So then I could do whatever I wanted.
Where did you go?
An apartment.
I think we've talked about this. I don't
with
remember the
my
story.
high school friend Domini that I had met at North High my freshman year. And we got into an apartment together. I was like, hey, Mom, can I have that child support my dad keeps sending you every month? That'd be cool. We just got jobs and I've just lived on my own ever since.
Well, like you said, you always were an old soul anyway. So you're like, I'm good.
I would have rather been broke and poor than to have to be controlled constantly and absorb the energy that I was having to absorb with my mom.
Were you able to share your gifts and things with your mom?
Yeah, I did early on as a child. That was when I saw my great-grandfather at the foot of my bed. And he said, tell your mom I'm not in pain anymore and that I'm still with her. And so I did. I went into her room and I told her that. I was 6. Wow. And she said, go back to bed. And I was like, okay.
So that was a shutdown.
It was a shutdown. And I knew not to share that anymore. So, but then as a teenager, my friends knew that I would do that. Like when I moved the bed from the one wall I moved it from the south wall to the east wall. And my friend Barbara, she was my maid of honor. I've known her since 7th grade. She goes, what did you do that for? And we were 17 going to a party that night. And I said, that voice told me to move it and it always saves me. So
I'm just doing it.
I don't know how this is going to save me. And that night, Barbara and I are crashed in my room and a truck drove through my bedroom wall and missed our heads by like that much. And we survived. But if I had left the bed on the south side wall, we would have been under the truck. We would have died.
Oh, yeah.
No question. So I always listen to that inner voice more so than all the people outside of me.
Exactly.
That always have something to say.
I know. Well, and the thing that's so cool about what you're doing now, obviously you've been standing in your own power forever. Yeah. But you also know that there are so many people out there that have these gifts and don't know what to do with them. And you've created, I'm wearing your shirt, your Dead University. You gave this to me when you were first starting it.
Yes.
And now you have Dead University so people can understand how to really use their gifts.
So I created Dead University because when I was going through growing up with abilities and even in adulthood, because it's a constant evolution, they didn't have anything like that for us. So I created a school where it brings gifted people together. So it creates a friend group for them so they don't have to feel so alone.
Their own community.
Right. Their own community. They talk to one another. They read each other because we created a Zoom laboratory where they pull impressions off of each other and do mediumship readings because I'm the professor of mediumship. Tom McMullen's the professor of astrology, so he teaches the astrologers. Diane Goldner is the professor of healing. She does light work and healing work. And then I have Margaret Jameson, who's the professor of earth magic, who teaches potions and spells.
Right.
So
I love it.
I know, me too. We're going on we're having summer camp in Sedona this summer. And I had T-shirts made for them because I was really excited. All 1970s camp looking, very cool.
I love it.
And
so your style.
So Professor McMullen and Jameson are coming up for that as well. And we're going to put them through classes because I need to see their style so I could tell how good they are or how much work they need to do.
Well, because you've done it primarily online.
Right.
So this is the first in person.
I talk to them every day, though, on Discord. So my students can if they have a question and something happens and they've had an experience, they can run it past me. Mm-hmm. If they've tried to do a reading at a very amateur level and had a problem, they can come to me. So I like being there for them. And I'm not doing it for the money because I actually created it and made it so where anyone could afford it.
Right.
And because I was seeing all of those mediums out there that had courses for like $5,000 and you go to the Bahamas for it. And I'm not knocking them. I'm just saying, really? That's a lot.
Right.
And people were coming back and they were no better at what they were doing. So I wanted to create something that actually teaches people what to do with abilities and gives them that resource. And so we're going to record it. Sophia's our videographer this summer. She's going up and we're going to put it on YouTube.
When is it happening?
July 11th through the 14th, Dead University's descending on Sedona, Arizona.
I love it.
I'm so excited. We're going to teach them about crystals and we're doing I have a professional. She's going to teach them how to read chakras. Mm-hmm. And we're going to go hike the vortexes. So I'm pretty jazzed about it. It'll be cool.
Awesome. So is this only for your students that you've had for a while? Or is this,
I can't, because I can't
take on new.
I can't take on new people for something like that. And I may never do this again, but I at least want to do this once and really see
well, then you're
bringing
with
them all together. Yeah. I have them flying in from Ireland and Australia and all over the world. I think we have like 30 select students coming in.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited. The mediums are really excited. And so I rented houses for them. So they're sort of like houses like Gryffindor and Slytherin. Like they have their own houses. And so they can all bond in jacuzzi.
Oh my gosh, that'll be amazing.
It's going to be great.
That's really cool. And you also just opened up, because you have been forever touring and doing all the stuff and traveling like a mad woman.
18 years, yeah.
I mean, that's a lot.
Took my youth.
It did. Again, workaholic over here. But so you've been doing that for so long, and now Joe, and I have to talk about Joe for just a minute, because you guys, you've been married for 30 years now.
Yes.
And we absolutely love both of you. I mean, Eric and I are great friends with both of you. You're just amazing people. And Joe has been such a support, and you're even discovering walking into this.
Yeah.
I mean, you did this with him.
Yeah.
That's huge.
Yeah.
That's so unusual.
We sort of grew up together.
Yes.
Because we were young. I was 20 when we met.
Yeah.
So, and he was 24.
Right.
So I think that's part of it. But also, he's a free-thinking man. So he's a scientist, but he was looking at what I was doing and he was like, it's energy work. That makes sense. It's energy.
He gets it.
He says, energy cannot be destroyed nor created.
It just changes form.
Just changes form. And he's like, so that makes sense that we'd have a soul that would remain after the body dies.
Right.
And it was nice, but that's why we ended up with the scientists at the laboratory, because
of him.
He wanted to see, so he became a part of that process of observation, and he's just a student of life. He's paid attention to all of it. So now he's getting his PhD in astrophysics, and he's studying dark matter. because there's a question of what is dark matter? Does it really exist, and what's in it?
Yeah.
So it's interesting with the other side. They're right here, but there's somewhere else at the same time.
Right.
So it seems like there's dimensions, and somehow Joe and I we're fated
for
to be
sure,
together.
For sure. I have goosebumps.
I mean, it's just a medium and a rocket scientist walk into a bar. I mean, we literally met in a bar at that age.
I know.
An ASU sports bar, and it was for a reason.
What bar was it? Was it Minder Binders?
I wish it was Minder Binders. No, my roommate ran the door there, though. I got in there, too. It was Gators.
Okay.
It was Gators. I wish I'd known Joey Scioli at the time because his dad owned Minder Binders.
Yes, yeah.
Damn.
I know.
But no, so I had some good times at Minder Binders. It was Gators, and it was right across from Native New Yorkers, so we'd go and get chicken wings afterwards. But that's where I met him, and he said that I had a light shining on me, and he couldn't stop looking at me because I had big red hair.
Yes, big red hair.
And I'm like, it had nothing to do with the short skirts and the tan and the white skirts I was wearing. And we're not even each other's type, honestly. I mean, I can't be his type. I don't know what that was, but it had to have been something more, no offense, but mundane.
Yeah.
Like more predictable.
Subdued. Yeah.
But he's a moon in Aquarius, so he was looking for that girl that was just
a wild
different.
Child. Yeah.
Well, he found her.
I know he did. He's been hanging on ever since.
I know. He's a good guy.
I know he is.
And that's why when Medium came out and they depicted a Joe so perfectly with Jake Weber.
Now that I know you guys, I totally agree. He was the perfect cast.
It was. They were all cast, and their personalities could not be more fitted to my girls and Joe. It's kind of amazing.
Yeah.
You know, Glenn Caron came to Arizona to meet them all at a party at my house, like a get together. He met the real chief.
Yeah.
That Miguel Sandoval plays on the show. And he met all of my family, and my dad had passed already though. So not that. The DAs I worked with, they were there. The police officers I'm friends with, some of them were there.
So they really got to know your tribe.
Yeah. And so I really appreciate that they went that extra mile to make it so real, which is why I think Medium's one of the best television series that's ever been made, because it's so different and it actually is so accurate to the family. I think Patricia was a nicer version of me. And of all the characters, she's probably the least like me in that sense. Right, I agree. Because she is so
little less
soft.
feisty.
She walked into my house. She came to my house to meet us and to go to dinner with me and Joe. And, you know, I love her, by the way. She's one of the kindest people I've ever met. She truly is down to earth, very sweet. Really love Patricia. Great person. She walked in Birkenstocks. I've been carrying an attaché case since the 5th grade and wearing suits since as far back as they would make them for children. And
she comes in all hippy dippy.
She came in like that with her backpack, and I was just like, shit. And she sat down. I started getting to know her. I'm like, I'm such an asshole. I looked at her and I said, "What do you think of the death penalty?"
Of course you'd start with that.
And she looked at me and she goes, she's so brilliant actually and so thoughtful. She says, well, there are some people that are so bad that there may not be any other alternative. She's like, that's up to the courts to decide.
Right.
And I was like, okay,
this might work. Right. This may work.
Like this, okay. And she and I did a shoot for OWN Network. And I arrived on the set and they had stylists and everything. And she was smiling. And I'm like, what are you smiling about? And she's like, I've spent years dressing like you. Today, you're dressing like me. And so they pulled out the wardrobe, the Jimmy Choo shoes.
Oh my God.
And the flowier blouses and stuff. And I was like,
you're like, seriously?
Really? But we did do that together, which was really fun. So I'm blessed beyond belief. And I don't mean just to throw the word out there. There are people richer than me. There are people better looking than me. There are people smarter than me. I am blessed just for the life I have. I wouldn't have it any other way. I'm so content. It's not even fair. And I think if you get to a point in your life where you have that that level of contentment. And even when my husband irritates me sometimes, and I'll look at him, I'm like, you're annoying me. And he'll just smile and
you
walk
two
away.
are totally that way.
He is the love of my life.
I know.
My life wouldn't be what it is without him. I need him. We were made for each other. And I love our children, flaws and all. I wouldn't trade any of that. I actually appreciate the flaws. And Patricia Arquette actually said something to me that sort of relates to this. And she has a space between her teeth. And I used to get mad when we'd have media roundtables where you have multiple reporters interviewing you at the same time, or you're on multiple radio shows and you go from one to the other.
That gets exhausting.
It was a lot of tours. Anyways, so I got tired of reporters who would say to her, how does it feel to be playing a woman who's better looking than you? I thought it was the rudest thing I'd ever heard.
They would say that?
Absolutely. To her face. Glenn Karen was there. I was there. And I got so pissed. And I looked at the reporter and I said, why would you say that to her? I'm like, that's so rude. And Patricia like put her hand over on my arm and she was like, don't worry about it, because she's lived in that world for so long with people saying horrible things like that she's such a professional in her field. She handled it with grace, something I don't have. And I was like incensed.
It fired you up.
I was incensed. I mean, that was just, it was wrong. And when something's wrong, I feel it on such a core level. And that just felt so mean.
Yeah.
And I asked, one of the reporters in the roundtables asked her, why don't you get your teeth fixed? You know, because she got that space. And she just looked at them and she said, I think it's our flaws that make us beautiful.
Yeah. That's brilliant. That's the truth.
She said, that's what makes us who we are, how it makes us different from everyone else.
Right. And embrace that.
And the people who want to look like Kim Kardashian might learn something from that, to learn to look in the mirror and be happy with seeing yourself.
Right.
Instead of trying to be somebody else who's probably not all that happy.
Exactly.
So
be comfortable and love yourself in your skin.
And life is short. And they're looking at their face and the butt implants and everything they're doing, which I don't understand at all. Because to us, we're like, that was a offensively unattractive feature to have.
Right.
And I'm looking at them and they're like, oh, you guys are older. Like, you don't understand. It's like, here's the thing. Mirror. I'm your mirror.
Right.
You're going to be my age like that. And you're in for a rude awakening if you think there's any way that you're going to stop time and look the way you do forever. And it's with wisdom that you look back at the younger you and sometimes want to slap you for saying something that you said. You're like, why did I say that? But every young person puts their foot in their mouth and thinks they're immortal. They think they can stop time. They think their skin's not going to sag because they put lotion on it. It's like, newsflash, it's not the lotion. Your skin just relaxes at a certain age and it just doesn't hold things up anymore.
All right.
So it's interesting dealing with women. I spend
specifically.
Women. And because we've been held to a beauty standard, and it's at some point you have to become comfortable in your skin. If you want plastic surgery, get plastic surgery. I have nothing against it. If it makes you feel better and more confident, great. But don't be looking for something to happen that transforms your inside. Mm-hmm. That's from the outside, or people to truly love you more because you're more beautiful. Those aren't the people you want to attract.
No, if you're doing something like that, it should be purely for you.
Exactly.
And no one else.
Exactly.
Period.
And the older you get, I think the more you're bored by those people, the mundane, and the more you're interested in like being friends with Jack Black or somebody funny or somebody that can just like whip out a guitar and start playing something, somebody interesting.
Yeah.
You look for more interesting the older you get. Mm-hmm. That's what you want to surround yourself with, to learn something. You know? Yeah.
I know. Well, that's why I love having you in my life.
Oh, thank you. Well, I've got a lot of stories, I suppose. They had to make a television show.
So thank you for being here. I know you're exhausted and I'm not going to make you keep talking to me, even though we'll talk off camera, but, what is the best way for people to find you, to be able to, I know you book way out because you're very popular and you're very busy all the time.
I'm accurate.
Yes. Yes. So how can people find you to get readings, maybe look into Dead University, all those things? I am, by the way, wearing her Dead University shirt today.
Thank you. I love that. Okay. If they want to get on the list for readings,
yes.
You email Joe booking at AllisonDuBois.com. Booking at AllisonDuBois.com is my assistants will get back to you. They'll coordinate the details with you. I have in-persons now because I opened my own
That's what I was going to say. Yeah, you have one now.
Scottsdale, instead of touring, I'm here. It's like if you fly in, you can do it here. I'm not going to everyone else anymore.
I'm telling you, people, it's worth it to be with this woman in person.
Oh
She's incredible. Her energy is, it's different than, if you can do that, I suggest it.
Thank you. And then AllisonDuBois.com is my website that has resources on it and my books. So I've written 6 books that can help people move through their grief. I've got a podcast called The Dead Life.
Yes.
That you can tune into. And deaduniversity.com if you want to check out our courses. If you feel like you've got a gift and you want to see if you can grow that gift, that's what we're here for. So those are probably the best ways to get a hold of me. And you can find me on Instagram at Medium Allison and on my Facebook fan page.
Yay! Thank you so much. I love you to pieces. You know how much I love you. And I'm grateful that you took the time. I know that you don't stop, and on your day off, you're like, oh, Jesus, Tammy, this is my day off. I'm like, please.
I'm going over to the Sugar Bowl. I got to get me a sundae of some sort and some good eats.
Yay. So anyway, thank you again.
You're welcome.
I love you.
You're welcome.
Thank all of you for being here and joining us. I know that this was a treat. This was a treat for me. I hope it was a treat for you. You can find more information, of course, on TammyTuesday.com, as well as follow us on Instagram at TammyTuesdayLife and Facebook as well. And always leaving you with lots of love and light. And remember, life, love, and purpose, it all begins with you. Peace out.